After yesterday and talking about prep for baits for abroad and glugging baits just for that extra boost, I thought I'd talk to you about paste baits and making your own baits, which is an absolute massive edge this time of year. With this cold water, you want baits that are going to break down a bit quicker, and every bait is boiled, hence the name boiling, and it boils a skin on them, and that skin is basically sealing in everything inside. And now, although Pallatrax is really good on this, because if you put a leading manufacturer's bait in with a Pallatrax to wash out, after 48 hours you break the pair open. Generally, the squab on jungles, which I did the test with, the water would penetrate all bar the core, just a tiny little bit left of the core that hadn't actually got water to it, which means all that flavour and goodness was washing out, sending out those signals. Whereas the leading manufacturer's brand, I broke it open and there was only a couple of mil of penetration of the water, which basically means that all of the flavours, all the things that's actually attracting the fish to that bait, wasn't getting out. And if it's all sealed in the middle, it ain't no good. And in the colder water, this is exaggerated because things aren't moving, the coldness congeals stuff, holds everything in. So part boiling your baits and paste baits are a massive edge this time of year. So other than just getting a normal one out of the bag and then wrapping that in paste, I also sometimes like to make my own. And the other reason I like to make my own is because of surface area. Now, if you think a bait that's round, that has a very small surface area to it. And not only that, the aerodynamics of it, which we'll go into in a minute, of hooking the fish and it coming in and out of his mouth. So as far as washing out flavour, you imagine the surface area of that, and then you take the same amount of bait like that. Now look at the surface area, look at all the little bits and bobs where the water can get in and get out. You obviously still need it so you can get a hair for it and it's going to stay on, so you just mould one end slightly. So the way I'd have that now is I'd put the baiting needle through the little bit that I've moulded, out this side, put my little boilie stop on and pull back in. So what I'll do is I'll make up a dozen, maybe more, just little torn apart baits with these massive surface area, but just one slightly firmer end, just to hold your hair in place. And all these misshapen baits as well, it's just more natural for the fish, because let's be fair, in nature, how many things are that shape? Very, very few. And even then, it's maybe some sort of shell life that has gone into defense mode and rolled itself up. Other than that, very few things in nature are spherical. And obviously, some multi-worm ones as well, just tearing it apart. That lovely edge there with all the bits everywhere, just letting the water in. It's more surface area, more flavour washing out. And what I'll do is I'll do a few of each different type to take with me. And the other thing is, this is the point where you can be as creative as you want, because if you're fishing an area where you've got some multi-worm on it, you've got some jungle, then what's to say you can't fuse the two together and make another bait? Bit of multi-worm, bit of jungle. And I don't like to mash these together so it becomes one paste. I like to keep this as two separate defined areas rather than just it all mixed in too much. And then historically people have done this a lot with jungle and crave and called it crungle. My problem is I'm a creature of habit. I love my multi-worm, I love my jungle, so generally they're the two that I'll mix together. And you can make so many different variations on this. And you can also balance your baits by taking small pieces of cork. Obviously the bit of cork to match the size of the bait you want to use. And when you're using pieces of cork, I prefer the tubes as opposed to the cork balls. Depending on how much paste you put on it, depends on how buoyant it's going to be. And I like just a couple of mil, just making sure it's completely covered. But when I do these, because I want more of a solid shape, but obviously I don't want it to travel through the water too well, because obviously I want that hookability off of it, I like making myself little cubes. But the one thing about it, when you are doing these, is you need to put the baiting needle through it now. Because if you try and put it through the cork at a later date, not only have you got a very good chance of hooking your fingers, but you also end up breaking a lot of the pop-up that you're making apart. So what I like to do is kind of mould it around that, get myself some bait floss. This is of course unless you want to tie your baits on, which I'm not a massive advocate of, if I'm honest. So I get it like that. Now that's all ready. And just make sure it's evenly wrapped, the paste. Make it nice and square. And boom. Ready to be boiled off, and that'll be a nice little pop-up. Now, when I talk about part boiling them, is when I'm doing baits this time of year, I only boil them for 20 seconds. So you get the water nice and hot, boiling away. I would make up a couple of dozen different hook baits, different shapes, different sizes, all with variabilities on how I want them. And when I do that, it's 20 seconds in the water. Quick dip in, count off to 20, and they're out. And then you air dry them. You're probably looking at air drying for 24 to 48 hours before you go fishing in a nice, cool, dark place. You don't want them in direct sunlight. You don't want them at room temperature because they'll crack, they'll dry out too quickly, and you just don't end up with a great bait, if I'm honest. The other reason behind these weird shapes and not having perfectly spherical baits is that if I take that, if I drop that into the water, it will hit the water, it will spin, it will move. If I drop that into the water, it will just drop straight down. Now, you imagine a fish sucking that in. As that sucks that in, it's moving in the water, it's going to wobble, it's going to be all over the place. If it sucks that in, it's going to go straight in, and if it wants to reject it, it's straight back out. It sucks that in, it goes in, it's moving. It wants to spit it out, it's going to twist, it's going to turn, and it's just going to move your hook around that little bit more. Just give that hook that little bit of chance, little 10% chance more that it's going to find the hook. And that's my tip really in making your baits this time of year. The little bit of part boiling is going to make the skin a lot softer, and is going to give that flavour, that flair, that attraction more chance of getting out. And on top of that, you're going to increase the surface areas, and by increasing the surface area, there's more area for it to come out, which is again increasing the amount of your flavours that are coming out. And while I'm here doing this prep, there's one other thing I like to show you. I don't have any snails with me to rehydrate, but a lot of people ask about why there isn't multi-worm like flavour and stuff. It's because it's a natural product. It is made with worms. It has got all that natural goodness in it. And just a tip, if you get a bit of paste and put it in some warm water, I don't know if you can see that, but that starts to wash out. Now that is the perfect place to rehydrate snails if you're looking for a multi-worm tint to them. That water in there now, as the snail absorbs it all in, it will give it a multi-worm flavour. So if you're fishing over multi-worm with a snail, that's my top tip. Like I said, it's just a bit of paste, and you can see all the goodness and flavour milking out of that paste there, and all that into that water. As the snail rehydrates, that's what the snail's going to absorb. That's what that snail's going to be flavoured with. And again, it's just such a natural edge to our fishing that no other company's doing that gives us the edge over them. So that's my top tip for today, boys and girls. Paste, making your own hook baits, effort equals reward, and let's get out there and let's bag some more fish.